It's hard to think of the TV show Friends without thinking of Matthew Perry, but he was a lot more than his character Chandler Bing. He was also a proud Canadian, a die-hard hockey fan, and by all accounts, a genuinely funny guy who wanted to help others. I talked with his sister, Caitlin Morrison, about the Matthew Perry Foundation and how they're honoring his legacy by supporting people with addiction and mental health challenges. And then, John Candy. Before Hollywood and movies like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, he was a second city kid in Toronto and one of the breakout stars of SCTV. In the 1970s, he even made an appearance on a TVO kid show called Cucumber.
What is it? Is it a bird? Is it a plane? Is it the...
It's a weatherman. Mind if I stand till it stops raining?
This year, we got a new documentary and a new biography about him. I talked with author Paul Myers about why John Candy's work still hits home more than 30 years after his death. This is The Rundown. The media usually refers to Friends star Matthew Perry, but the Canadian-born actor and comedian had a different goal, being remembered for helping others. Since Perry died 2 years ago, his family and friends have been working to honor that goal. They established Matthew Perry House, a supportive recovery community in Ottawa for people with addiction and mental health challenges. To learn more about Perry's life and legacy, I sat down with Caitlin Morrison, the executive director of Matthew Perry House, and the actor's sister. Caitlin, great to have you here. How are you doing?
It's great to be here. I am good. I am overwhelmed. I'm great.
Let's get to know Matthew Perry through your eyes. Here's a picture with you and your older brother, Matthew Perry. Give us a sense. What was he like? What kind of a brother was he?
Amazing. He was the funniest older brother probably that anybody ever had. So it was a lot of really cool slapstick gags and, you know, kind of learning to be funny and steal his sense of humor, which I think I did. But also the other thing is he was very, very overprotective. So well into my 20s, he was still saying things like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know if it's really a good idea for you to go out past 8 o'clock at night. Are you sure that you're comfortable with the people you're going out with? Are you sure you're allowed to watch that on TV? It's a little violent."
What were we watching?
It was I can't even remember, Saving Private Ryan or something like that maybe, but it was, you know, I'm a grown-up.
Right.
I am a grown-up now. But I was always a little tiny kid to him, and he was always kind of a bigger version of a human to me too.
Now, I understand, true or false here, he's an Ottawa Sens fan. You're a Leafs fan?
That is correct.
How did that all come to be?
I'm sorry, Senators.
That's all right.
They're very nice
We're
to
in
me.
Toronto right now, so you're safe.
That's true.
Yeah,
Okay,
yes.
okay, fair. Good. But yes, no, so he grew up in Ottawa. I lived in Ottawa till I was about 4. And at that point, I did not know what hockey was. But once I came back to Toronto and I got very invested in hockey a little bit later, I mean, the Leafs. And then, you know, everybody here knows, you get disappointed every year. you get hopeful the next year, and then you get disappointed again. And I feel like none of us can let go of our fandom, because what if they win next year and we let go?
That is the hope of many Leafs
Right?
fans. Now, Matthew Perry House is in Ottawa.
The first one.
The first one is in Ottawa. Okay, tell me about his connection to the city and why that needed to be the first one.
Well, I mean, he always was an Ottawa kid.
What does that mean?
He loved it. It was his home base. It was his hometown. That's where he went to school. It's where he met his best friends for life. He was even looking at real estate because he felt like he wanted to go back there because it would feel more like home. So that was just kind of his spot. And I love it there too. Beautiful place. But I think his connection was, deeper rooted. And so that seemed like the spot.
In terms of connections, when he passed, he had this quote. He said, "When I die, I want helping others to be the first thing that's mentioned." That's a quote that's been sort of talked about ever since he has passed. And I think it's an important one, but I want to understand why. Why was it important that that people remember him for that and not for Chandler Bing on Friends?
Well, that just made me think of it in a whole new way, the fact that you asked the question that way. And I think it's because when he was helping people, and he did that a lot, by the way, when he was helping people, that was what made him feel good as a human being. That made him feel like something. It took away a lot of those things that he was hiding away a lot of the time, those painful things. And when he was just making people laugh, and when he was doing the funny bit, and when he was all out there and, being the Chandler, I think all that pain was being pushed down under the comedy. Because, I didn't see it most of the time. Most people didn't see it most of the time. But I think for him, comedy was a coping mechanism, but a healing mechanism was realizing that he could find a way to help other people. It feels really good to help other people.
Now, when you were younger, you got to be on set and see all of the jokes and all the laughter and all of that stuff. But I'm curious, like you mentioned, you probably didn't see the stuff that, whether it was Matthew or other cast members or anyone, just kind of the dark side or things that they were dealing with on a personal level. Do you think there is a bit of a stigma around mental health still in the entertainment industry?
I think there's a stigma about mental health everywhere. And I think it's internalized too. I think we have a lot. It's very easy for us to say something like, my back is just driving me nuts. But it's a little bit harder to say, I'm feeling really low today. I just don't feel good.
How do you change that?
I think one of the ways that we change it is we make people realize that that's an okay thing to talk about. And I feel like that's something that's been changing a lot already. People feel a lot more comfortable talking about that stuff. They feel a little bit more comfortable reaching out for help. So that's one thing. But another piece is when people are really struggling, when they're in when the sort of the darkest side of mental health issues, it seems so difficult to solve. It seems like something you can't do anything about. When you see somebody who's at the point where they almost seem to have lost touch with the world around them, they seem nothing but angry, they seem really frustrated. There's a sense of, I don't know what I'm supposed to do about that. I don't like to see it, but I don't know what I'm supposed to do about it. And I think that kind of makes us think, well, if I can't help, then there's either something wrong with me, or maybe I can decide that that's not a person who can be helped. That's an unfixable situation. And so it becomes stigmatized because it's an easier way to look at it, that it's just a problem that we wish could be erased, but we don't really know what to do. And I think it's actually more of an everyone thing. It's in all. We're all half a step away from being in a worst case scenario of our own. And I think the way that Matthew found his true joy in helping other people, I think that we can find a much more joyful and wonderful society if we decide that instead of trying to make ourselves more comfortable, we start looking around and saying, maybe I can help. I'm going to at least try.
Well, one of the things some would say is even having these conversations that and we talk about being comfortable, we were saying just off camera that you're not very comfortable being in front of cameras yourself.
Not at all. I'm terrified.
You don't like
terrified.
it, but it's important to talk about these conversations. I am curious, in your opinion, has the media had a positive, negative sort of conversation around mental health? What do you, in terms of their role and what they've been able to do over the last couple of years?
I think there's been a lot going on that's been really positive. I think that you're hearing about it more. I think media is talking about it more. And I think that it's sort of being felt in the media world too, right? That there's more need for support, even in the people who are living it. I don't know about you, but I think there's, just like for everyone else, there's more uncertainty. There's more, is this a stable thing? Is this going to keep going? Do we need to totally reinvent what we are? Are we okay to be who we are in this really rapidly changing and very scary world? So it's, but the fact that media is choosing to talk about it instead of pull a blanket over it and ignore it is a really good sign, I think.
What's one thing that you do to maintain your mental health?
Well, first of all, I spend a lot of time just quietly spending time with my family, and that makes me very happy. Brings me back to what's important in life. But I have developed a new therapy, a new kind of therapy. I enjoy being a lumberjack. So when I am feeling
Are we cutting wood?
Yeah. So I have in the place where I live, there are some trees that are not good for Southern Ontario. They're not supposed to be there. They made their way in, and they're stubborn, and they spread rapidly. So I go and I try to get rid of them. If I'm in a bad mood, I go to the backyard and I find one of those trees and I chop it down and I dig up its roots. And that, by the way, better workout than yoga by far.
That's awesome.
So there you go.
Okay. Caitlin Morrison, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Well, the pleasure's all mine. Thank you. This has been great.
John Candy is one of those names that instantly makes you smile. And before he became a Hollywood star, he was here in Toronto as part of Second City, a place that has plenty of famous alumni. Eugene Levy, Catherine O'Hara, Martin Short, Dan Aykroyd, Andrea Martin, and of course, the late, great John Candy. I went down to Second City to talk to Paul Myers, author of John Candy, A Life in Comedy, about Candy's love for Second City, how much Toronto shaped him, and people's enduring love for him. Plus, we also got into a great story about what happened when Candy met Paul's brother. Maybe you heard of him. His name is Mike Myers. Paul, really appreciate you joining us here at Second City, Toronto. As you can see, we're sitting in the John Candy Box Theatre. You had a very special relationship with the institution. Tell me about it.
Well, this stage underneath me is part of the building where John Candy started at Second City, and it started his career, and he almost didn't do it because he wasn't really going to audition for Second City, but Dan Aykroyd and Valerie Bromfield were auditioning, and they were friends of his, and they said, come with us to the auditions. You can just sit in the back, and we'll have lunch afterwards. And then they called his name, and he's like, you guys. And so that's what started it. He got in because he just did an improv. He'd never tried it before, and turns out he was a natural.
You mentioned the floors. These are the floors that he has performed on. When you first came in here, first thing that you did was you knocked on the floor.
Yeah, I knocked on the floor. It's like this little part of the stage underneath us is where so many of the greats of comedy, frankly, not just Canadian comedy, we've exported these people like Dan Aykroyd, like Gilda Radner, like my own brother Mike, elephant in the room, John Candy, Eugene Levy, Dave Thomas, and they all got their start here, on this piece of stage.
Johnny Toronto.
Yeah.
That is the nickname that many know John Candy as. How did that story come about?
So when Candy first starts dominating the Toronto Second City, he was one of many, but he was definitely a big personality. He lived large, like he would outspend his own bank account, but he wanted to have the right thing. So if they needed a limo for something, he would just rent a limo, and they'd say, Johnny, where are you going to get the money? And he was like, don't worry about it. And they started nicknaming it. It might have been Joe Flaherty. They started calling him Johnny Toronto, like he owns the town.
Right.
And it's a much longer story, and it's in the book, so I don't want to. But
in some ways, did he own Toronto?
Well, by the time he owned the Toronto Argonauts, I think it was Dan Aykroyd turned to somebody in the crowd and said, "Look at him. The crowd loves him." And he brought the Grey Cup to his hometown. And they said he is Johnny Toronto. He made it. He became Johnny Toronto.
So John Candy achieved global stardom. We can name a bunch: SCTV, Uncle Buck, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. For a younger generation, it would be Home Alone. But he still remained deeply rooted to Canada. He was part owner of the Toronto Argonauts alongside Wayne Gretzky when they won the Grey Cup in 1991. Can you talk to us about the pride he had for Canada?
You know, he, like so many of the people we export, he bought a house in Mandeville Canyon in Los Angeles, but also a farm in Queensville. And so he had this ranch, and he wanted to make sure that his family knew the Canadian life. And he spent a lot of time coming back and working with Canadian actors. Only film he directed was a film called Hostage for a Day, and he populated the cast with people like Robin Duke from Second City, and some of the people who were in the main stage cast at the time, like John Hempel, Don Lake, Catherine Greenwood. And he really wanted to bring people with him.
Therapist said we should be a little less mocking in our relationship.
Oh, is that what the therapist said? Well, I'm trying. It's just that there's so much in our marriage that calls for it.
He worked really hard in Canada. The last film that got released after his death was Canadian Bacon,
Right.
which is like about our complex relationship that seemed to have cleared up. We don't have that complex relationship anymore with the United States. But, you know, I think he really felt the two allegiances in a sense, because California had been good to him and America had been good to him.
Right.
But you don't, I live in California. I can tell you, you are Canadian the whole time, you know, and no matter where you are, you're Canadian first. And I feel like I identified with that when I was reading about him.
You write in the book, he lived large, he loved larger, and the world loved him back in return. It's beautiful. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, you know, it's elaborating on something Andrea Martin said in her own memoir. She talked about how he was a volcano of joy. He wanted to make happiness for everywhere he went. So he also wanted to be happy. So part of his happiness came from connecting with people. He was on the phone for hours every night. He wanted to have after-show parties. Now, a lot of that meant that he was eating and drinking late at night, which didn't help his health condition. But it was all based on that wanting to be connected with people all the time. And I think he got into comedy because it was a way of, it's weird, because I say control, it's not a bad kind of control, but you want to do something to affect the room or the person in that room. And comedy on a grand scale affects many people, but it also is a one-on-one thing. It's just a way of finding joy. And joy is one of those things that it's contagious. Once you give joy, other people are joyful. They spend, you know, and you don't have to think that, by the way. That's an intellectualized version of it.
Right.
I think with an animal like John Candy, it was instinctive.
You share a lovely anecdote in the book where your brother, actor, comedian Mike Myers, met John Candy at the University of Toronto on campus. Mm-hmm. Tell me how that very short interaction kind of influenced a comedian in the making. Yeah.
Okay, you know, similar to the way Spider-Man was bit by a radioactive spider, this is Mike's origin story. So my kid brother is goes to this comedy show. He's a little kid. He's kind of funny. In fact, he was funny. We didn't even know how funny. He was funny on the schoolyard, and he wouldn't even show us. And he goes and he says to John Candy, he's a young teen. He's 16 or 17. And he says, "Mr. Candy, sir, how do I get into comedy?" And any other celebrity would have given him possibly terrible advice or no advice. And, you know, Candy said, there's a theater downtown called Second City that I came from. They have workshops. If you go to the workshops, you can find out if you're any good, or if you're interested. And if you're not interested, you'll drop out and you'll come up with something else. Maybe you'll be an actor, maybe you'll be a musician, or whatever you want to do. He goes, and if you're good at it and you work hard, you'll get better at it. And you still might not get discovered, but you'll be happy doing it because you love doing it. And if you love doing it, you'll keep doing it and you'll get better. And maybe somewhere down the line, you'll do something. But just find out first if you're any good and if you love it, because you have to love it. That is the most amazing advice.
That's awesome.
It's like he met, on the mountaintop, the guru said. And so then, here's how that affects me in a weird way. So this is my most recent book. My book before it was Kids in the Hall, One Dumb Guy. The kids in the hall were in the same classes that I went to because my brother went to. I met the kids in the hall at Second City workshops because Mike had gotten us all to Second City workshops. So when the kids in the hall started taking off, we all knew each other. I wrote their book, and then I wrote the John Candy book. So not only did it start Mike's phenomenal career, but my career, in a weird way, has also, I am now the guy chronicling all those things.
This year would have marked his 75th birthday. John Candy passed away at 43, untimely. What makes him such a revered figure in Canadian pop culture, even to this day?
I think, for one thing, when he was cut short of what he could have done, he would have gone into dramatic acting, possibly directing, and maybe more comedies. Maybe he might have also been in something like Schitt's Creek with his fellow SCTV people. But the absence of John persists. People who knew him and knew his work felt like they still haven't resolved that loss. At the same time, what he represents in his work, values that I think are hugely needed today: joy, empathy, vulnerability. He represented the so-called common man with noble dignity, right? Dan Aykroyd, by the way, in the book describes him in these kinds of terms all the time. And those values in a film like Cool Runnings, which takes place at the Calgary Olympics.
When you cross that finish line, where did these guys come from? Jamaica! You'll know.
He talks a lot about values that I think we should all aspire to. And there's a lot of cruelty in public policy in places and in people's social media. When you see a character who lived for empathy and joy, and his face is like a beacon of that, these twinkling eyes of his. Yeah. So it's like, if you didn't invent this character, if he didn't exist, we'd have to make up a fictional character like this. His face is a flag for joy,
For fans who have followed him throughout his career, and new fans who might be opening this book and discovering, what a mogul he was really for Canadians here, what do you hope they take away from his career?
He really tried to do films that made people laugh, but he was also good to people. He was good when no one was looking is a phrase that comes up a lot. I hear that in a lot of other people have said that. And I think there was something about you could be a big success and still stay scaled one-on-one with people. And I mean, that's definitely the lesson. And also, I guess, for all Canadians on a very specific level, representation matters. I say that with a little bit of facetiousness because, yeah, another white guy, but the representation of the goodness and the values of Canadians that we aspire to, even if it's only aspirational, we want to be better, and we have an icon here. So that's a good reason to celebrate him.
I want to change gears a little bit.
Okay.
Take a little bigger picture. Comedy seems to be having a moment right now, from the cancellation of the Late Show with Stephen Colbert to the suspension of Jimmy Kimmel, about his comments about Charlie Kirk, to comedians performing at the Riyadh Comedy Festival in Saudi Arabia. Knowing what you know about John Candy, what would he have made about all of this that is happening right now?
Oh, I have to preface anything by saying there's no way I presume to speak for John Candy at this point. I don't even, in the book I talk about some of his struggles, and I never even analyze or judge those. Like, however he lived his life, I can't walk a mile in his shoes. Right. And I can tell you that if somebody is getting a hurt as a result of his comedy, he wouldn't do it. Based on anecdotal, what I've seen, I don't think he would ever do cruel comedy or punch down. I think Jimmy Kimmel would like him. I think he would like Jimmy Kimmel. Like, those people who are, Seth Meyers, all those comedians who are out there being positive and just being enlightened. I can't speak for him, but evidence-based, he would have done something positive.
You can't speak for him, but you can speak for yourself. So I'm going to ask you, as a Canadian living in the States, how do you make a sense of what is happening?
It's tough. And are they going to show this when I enter the country again? No, and that answer says it all. I would say this. I recently wrote an essay called The Canadiafornian, and in it I formulated this view I have now. I love my space in Northern California that I live in with my wife. We're both Canadians, but we both got U.S. passports because we wanted to engage in civic politics there. It was during the Obama years, so don't get mad at me anyway. So we booked tickets on the SS Poseidon before it flipped. And so I will tell you that I always feel Canadian everywhere I go. So I am a Canadiafornian because I also feel a little bit, when I see the Republic of California flag, I feel a little bit of pride. And whenever I see the governor pushing back against the president, I feel you know, our state is holding out, you know, a little bit. So if that changes, I'll let you know.
Okay.
But I definitely feel Canadian. I feel super proud. I was just at a writers' festival in Calgary, and I was on panels talking about the Canadian condition, which is something we never tire of talking about, and perhaps never should. I want Canada to be all the cool things I like about Canada, and it is home. So, and I'm not just saying that because I'm here in Toronto, right? You know, I say that when I'm anywhere.
Paul, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much. Really
Thank you.
appreciate
It's really
Thank
fun
you.
talking to you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. We're building a new show. We're also building a whole new studio, and there is a lot going on behind the scenes. Producer Diego Garcia took his camera along so you could take a peek behind the curtain. So we're up to 2200. So we're in 2180. We're going to another building, which is our temporary studios where we do our cold opens, where we start every piece. Welcome to our temporary set.
The last few months, the team has been working on a new show called The Rundown. This has been a very interesting process, but also a little bit crazy at times.
So this is Ricardo over here. He's the man behind the camera. This is where we do our cold opens. So not what we wanted to do when we launched our show, but we found this open sort of conference space. We set up lights, we do our cold open. Not gonna lie, it's a bit stressful. Studio that is pretty much a construction site. When you've got it down to the bare bones, it is quite a big space. They're gonna have an arch window, like loft windows here. And then, yeah, a little nook for a cold open. This did not exist before. So, yeah. And you know what? There's challenges, obstacles that come with a show. This is not one that we thought, but I'm super proud of our team putting it together and, yeah, putting a show every night.
For our segment today, our guests will be calling in over Zoom. And during that time, I will be downstairs in the control room, make sure there's no sound or technical issues. And Jan will be in his makeshift studio on a different floor, and we'll be connecting through a headset. Then we have about 20 minutes of a segment. Hopefully we don't go too long.
Eric, I'm going to come to you first. You're part of a team that investigated white nationalist active clubs in Canada. Before we get into that investigation,
you can tell the amount of work that he puts in daily just to make sure everyone's okay, make sure everyone's comfortable and understands what we're doing.
White nationalism is more prevalent now than ever. This is something that you have
being able to start off with the rundown and see how a show actually comes to life for broadcast has been such an educational and cool experience.
I'm very thankful for the team that we have. It's the same team that's been working on current affairs programming at TVO. They know, we are all professionals, we know what we need to do to get it on air, and so here we are, very excited.
He's honestly great to work with, and I'm very proud of him and really happy that he's gotten this new role.
Okay, we got some work to do. As you just saw, our studio is under construction, and so is our show. We want you to help us build it. The show, of course, not the studio. So send your feedback and ideas to www.tvo.org/rundownfeedback and make your voice heard. Until then, I'll see you tomorrow.